Hi, I'm Gabriel Carrillo from the EdTech Bytes podcast, a part of the Education Podcast Network, just like the show you're listening to now. Shows on the network are individually owned, and opinions expressed may not reflect others. Find other interesting education podcasts at edupodcastnetwork.com.
Hello, Duct Tapers. Before we start today's mini episode, I'd like to tell you about GIF a Day. Based on the EDU GIFs that I share on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, my website, and my newsletter, I started these deep dive learning opportunities where participants get one EDU GIF in their inbox each weekday for roughly a month to teach them about a tech tool, one skill at a time. Starting on January 6th of 2020 is the third cohort. Guys, seriously though, 2020? That's bonkers. Anyhow, January 6th of 2020 is the third cohort of GIF a Day Google Sheets Ninja Level 1. And then in February comes the first cohort of GIF a Day Google Sheets Ninja Level 2. Registration for Level 1 is currently open. Just head over to jakemiller.net/GIF-a-day to register. And make sure you're on my email list so that you know when Level 2 registration opens up, as well as when future iterations about other tech tools open up. And now, let's get to the show.
Welcome to a mini episode of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Mini episodes just like this one are released every other Wednesday and feature interviews with educators that were recorded live on location at a conference or event. Please subscribe to the show to make sure that you don't miss any of these episodes. And now, here's the host of the Educational Duct Tape Podcast, Jake Miller.
Hello, Duct Tapers. Welcome in. Before we get into today's mini episode interview, I'd like to remind you to listen to full episodes of the podcast to hear longer interviews with my guests, my soapbox moments, and content from listeners just like you, the Duct Tapers. Also, those longer episodes give you the chance to earn a certificate of listening, laughing, and learning that you could turn in for professional development credits. Mini episodes like this one that you're listening to right now, however, are not eligible for those credits simply because they're so short. However, what they lack in certificates and episode length, they make up for in awesomeness. Speaking of that awesomeness, let's travel back in time to today's interview, which was recorded live and on location at a conference or event.
Today's guest.
All right, so I'm back here from day 2 of the Teach Better 2019 conference in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, and I am joined today by an educator that I'm excited to have on with me, even though I'm proud to be in Cuyahoga Falls, Ohio, because I'm an Ohioan. This person I probably shouldn't be allowing on my show because she's a Pittsburghian. What was the word there? She's a burger. She's a Yinzer is what she is.
Yes, I am a Yinzer.
So this is Rachelle Dene Poth. And Rachelle, why don't you give everybody like who are you? Where can they find you? What do you do? That kind of stuff.
All right. So we've established I'm from Pittsburgh, where I've been my whole life. I am a Yinzer. In addition to being that, I teach Spanish and STEAM. I've also taught French. I've been there. I teach at Riverview High School, which is like 20 minutes from Pittsburgh, roughly. I've been teaching for, a long time.
A long time, okay.
But I currently teach Spanish 1 through 4. I teach an 8th grade course to students who are interested in like emerging technology. So I get to cover a lot of my inner 80s technology child that loves stuff. So augmented virtual reality, artificial intelligence, a lot of digital tools for learning. So it's pretty awesome.
What a cool mix of stuff to talk about.
And people were interested sometimes, like, how's a Spanish teacher doing things with this? But we moved to from STEM to STEAM, and me being the A in arts, that was my segue into it. So
that's really cool. And there's like stuff like VR and AR. There's just so much that it can apply to the foreign languages or world languages classrooms, because putting people into those locations that they're learning about, right?
Yeah,
that's huge.
It's awesome.
That stuff. That's very, very cool. So this isn't our educational duct tape question, but if I had to say, like, what is your favorite tech tool, like a VR AR tool, because we did an episode recently about them, and my friend Dave Turnett was on and talked about a bunch of tools. What's your favorite tech tool?
Oh my gosh, I can never pick just one thing.
Okay, you pick as many as you want.
I will tell you that whenever I started, the thing that got me into it was Nearpod.
Okay.
Because with my students in Spanish 3 especially, we're like, hey, let's look at these places in Spain or Latin America or South America and so forth. And like, yeah, that's great in the picture, or the video is great. But then I found Nearpod, and I was able to actually let them explore in their virtual field trips, even with, the 3D objects, to take a closer look. And so that ended up, even for the students who were like, I don't like technology, why do we have to use this? They were totally engaged in it, and then they went and created their own lessons with it. So that, for me, for a lot of teachers who are like, I don't have a lot of time, like that is a great way to get started, because there's so many things out there you can start with. So that is always, for so many reasons, my go-to across the board, not just for VR, but also really like CoSpaces, and 3D Bear is another one. Just like, it gets students an opportunity to create.
Really cool. We have not really discussed any of those three things on the show before.
Well, that's good.
We've discussed Nearpod, and we mentioned that they have the VR there, because there was a episode a while back where I was talking about the differences between Pear Deck and Nearpod.
Right.
And for the most part, I feel like it doesn't matter what a teacher chooses, like as long as it's fitting their classroom.
Right.
But one of the big things that Nearpod has is that VR. Where, for somebody who's never used it, where can you pull in the VR content from? Is it anywhere? Can you make your own? Is there a certain source?
There's the nice thing about it, because we never have enough time to create things. So when you go into Nearpod, there's lessons already available in the library. You can filter them and search based on VR trips. But when you add it in, it's in their content, and it's just like you just choose from. It's powered by 360 Cities, so you can find. It's unbelievable, the number of things that are in there for the library to look anywhere. I mean, you want to go to Greece? Like, I just had people in a session like, let's go to Greece. Like, it's really cool to explore. And it's not just like that you look at it. Like, you can even create like a scavenger hunt within whatever the image is as the teacher and say, hey, when you look at this, don't you be like, wow, it's beautiful. Like, what do you see? What do you notice about like the history, the people, whatever?
Right. How does it compare to what you could do with Google Expeditions?
More like with Nearpod, it's interactive, because you can add in quizzes, activities, collaboration, students, and a lot more content into one space. But Google Expeditions is another great one that if a teacher wants to get started with the VR and doesn't have a ton of time, like, you just start, and it's easy to use.
So the Google Expeditions is a super easy tool to use, as you said, and it's ready there for the teachers already. It gives the teachers some stuff to point out, and some content to read off, and some questions to ask, but they're not getting back. The answers are verbal, right? Whereas in Nearpod, you're adding in some kind of activity stuff, and some student feedback. You can do some formative assessment out of it too, right? Which is really cool. We could have just done this as our question.
I know.
I still got another question I'm going to ask you, Rachelle, because I can't have you sitting here and not ask you another question.
That's okay.
That's really cool. Okay, so my actual educational duct tape question for you, and for the listeners that might be new out there, educational duct tape is my metaphor that educational technology is at its best when it's a tool being used to solve a problem, address a goal, or meet a learning standard, not when it's the tool, not when it's the focus, right? So when we use that Nearpod VR that you were talking about there, we're not just going like, today we're going to use Nearpod VR, we're going today we're learning about Greece. And then, okay, this is the tool we're going to use for it. So my other question for you now is, what tech tools can we use to engage students in digital storytelling?
Well, I would say like the first one that always comes to mind for so many reasons, and not just for that, but for across the board, you can use it for so much, is Bungie. And Bungie is a tool that we've used, like my students, whether they're in 8th grade or the seniors or myself, even I've made like, I'm not ashamed to say, my parents, I've made them like greeting cards or like presentations, because like what's better. But the thing about it is like, you can give students the opportunity to create something. It's easy for them to create. They can find something that attaches meaning. So whether you're teaching elementary, high school, middle school, foreign language, whatever, they have so many things to choose from that you can put in videos. It's safe search, but it's fun. So they got like emojis, and they have animations. And if you want students to have like people who are dabbing, bottle flipping, fidget spinners, you name it, for the students to be able to create something that's authentic and meaningful to them. And it's fun. So like they can search and create it. And then not only are they like creating this like project just for the sake of a project, they're building skills in the process, and they remember it more because of what they created. So it gives them just multiple options. It doesn't matter what the comfort level is, because it's easy to figure out, and it's fun to see what they create. Plus, you learn about the students too. Like, I didn't know that you liked whatever, and you can have a conversation. So it goes beyond that.
It's funny that you bring up Bungie, because we also have not discussed Bungie on the show. We're here as we're recording this. I've done 30 episodes, and we've somehow never mentioned Bungie. Bungie. And just last week, we were doing our Twitter chat that goes with the show. And one of the questions was about things that were like tools that we've identified that we're excited to try out but haven't yet. And Bungie was one of the ones that I mentioned in my answer. So for me, maybe a little selfishly, what kind of devices can we use Bungie on? What kind of costs are involved? What kind of age groups? Stuff like that.
Yeah, any age can use it. I mean, personally, I have a classroom account, so there's different subscriptions that you can get available, and there's a free that you can use as well, and create within that. And so when my students create, they are in my own classroom, so they get all of the different perks with it. But just the potential for what you can create across the board, like, I don't know, and they have templates now too. So for teachers who teach ELA, science, physics, whatever, you just have the template available and you just change the content and it prompts you. And there's an ideas lab. So if you're looking like, I got this thing I want to teach and I don't really know what I want to do with it, search the ideas lab. There's lessons, ready-made templates that you just start with. So it saves so much time, but then it also gives you that like, this is a tool I didn't know I could use, and now I can apply it to some other way. So, and I've even had students who came back and said, what my younger sister, brother was doing over the weekend? I said, what? They go, they're making a Bungie. That's interesting. Like they saw their siblings making it, and I've had parents who said that they actually created presentations using Bungie. Wow. So it's not just, for like elementary, high school, whatever. I mean,
I think it gets pigeonholed as an elementary age question.
And it's and they now have like immersive reader, which has been added into it. So for like language building skills, for students who need extra help identifying parts of speech, even like that is just it's phenomenal what it can do.
Yeah, great. I'm glad you got the chance to share this. So we did Nearpod VR and Google Expeditions and. What else did we talk about? We hit on Pear Deck.
Yes.
We talked about, what was your other?
Co-Spaces. 3D Bear is another one.
3D Bear we talked about. And we talked about Bungie.
Bungie, yep.
We talked about 6 things in like 12 minutes right there. Less than 12 minutes.
Yeah.
That was like 2 ideas an idea per 2 minutes. That's a pretty good ratio right there.
It was. We could keep going, too.
We totally could. So everybody out there is going to have to go follow Rachelle on Twitter and on Instagram. And can you remind everybody that handle?
Yes. Pretty consistent across all of my forms for communicating with me. It's RDENE915. So even if you want to send me an email, just add the Gmail to that. My blog site, just put the www.com at the end. You're good. But yeah, happy to connect.
And she guarantees 1 good idea per 2 minutes. Right? Just like other podcasts.
Yeah. I mean, maybe we'll see. No,
we'll see if you keep up that ratio.
Right.
Okay, well, we got to sign off with an on-air selfie. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay, she's ready. Here we go.
Oh, wait.
I pointed my camera the wrong direction.
That's okay. We'll take somebody else's selfie.
Perfect. Well, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Thank you.
I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening to the Educational Duct Tape Podcast. Please visit eduducttape.com to join the discussion, share possible topics, inquire about being a guest, or contact Jake. And remember, duct is spelled with a T, not a quack quack K.